Have you ever danced so hard you felt like you couldn't stop? It's a great feeling, right? The music is pumping, everyone's having a good time, but what if you literally couldn't stop? What if your body was moving against your will, forcing you to dance until you collapse from sheer exhaustion? This isn't a scene from a horror movie. It's a real historical event known as the Dancing Plague of 1518. It all started on a hot summer day in Strasbourg, a city in what is now France. A woman named Frau Trophia stepped out of her house and into the street, and she started to dance. Not a joyful, celebratory dance. It was a frantic, wild, and desperate dance. She didn't stop for lunch, she didn't stop for dinner, she didn't stop when night fell. She just kept dancing. For 6 straight days, her body twisted and her feet moved without rest. Her family was horrified, her neighbors were baffled. What was wrong with her? Within a week, the impossible happened. Other people started joining her. First, it was a few dozen. They too began to dance with the same frenzied, uncontrollable energy. They weren't smiling or laughing. Witnesses described them as being in a trance, their faces filled with fear and agony. They were screaming, crying, begging for help, but their limbs wouldn't obey. Their feet, blistered and bleeding, kept stomping on the cobblestones. The strange phenomenon was spreading like a wildfire. By the end of the month, the number of dancers had swelled to over 400 people. The streets of Strasbourg had turned into a chaotic, non-stop dance floor from hell. The city authorities were in a panic. They had no idea what was happening. Was it a new disease? A curse? They turned to the local physicians for answers. And this is where things went from bizarre to catastrophic. The doctors of the 16th century, after observing the afflicted, came to a startling conclusion. They diagnosed the problem as hot blood. Their theory was that the dancers were suffering from an overheating of their bodies, and the only way to cure it was to sweat it out. Their prescription? More dancing. Yes, you heard that right. They believed the cure was to encourage the very thing that was killing people. So, following the doctor's advice, the city officials took the most disastrous step imaginable. They cleared out a large market square, built a massive wooden stage, and even hired professional musicians and drummers to provide a steady beat. They thought that by creating a controlled environment, they could help the victims dance the fever out. They genuinely believed they were helping. The result was a complete and utter disaster. The constant music and the sight of a dedicated dancing stage didn't cure anyone. Instead, it seemed to fuel the mania. More and more people were drawn into the vortex of non-stop movement. The relentless drumming echoed through the city, creating an eerie, hypnotic atmosphere that seemed to pull onlookers into the same horrifying state. The cure had become an accelerant, turning a localized outbreak into a full-blown epidemic. Imagine the scene. Hundreds of people, their bodies slick with sweat, their clothes torn, their eyes wide with terror, all convulsing to the beat of a drum. Their families watched from the sidelines, helpless, as their loved ones danced themselves closer and closer to death. The stage, meant to be a place of healing, had become a public spectacle of suffering. People weren't just collapsing from exhaustion anymore. The non-stop physical exertion was leading to heart attacks, strokes, and organ failure. The death toll began to climb. One by one, the dancers fell, their bodies finally still. It's estimated that, at the peak of the plague, up to 15 people were dying every single day. So what on earth was going on? This is the question that has baffled historians and scientists for 500 years. There are 3 main theories, and each one is as fascinating as it is terrifying. The first, and perhaps most widely accepted theory, is mass psychogenic illness, or mass hysteria. Think of it as a social contagion. The people of Strasbourg in 1518 were living under immense stress. They had just endured a harsh famine. Diseases like syphilis and smallpox were rampant, and their lives were filled with poverty and superstitious fear. The idea is that this collective stress reached a tipping point. Frau Troffia's initial dance might have been a personal psychological break. But in this high-stress environment, her behavior was like a match tossed into a powder keg. Others, already on the edge, saw her and their own psychological distress manifested in the same physical way. It was a shared delusion, a trance-like state that spread through the power of suggestion. The second major theory is a bit more grounded in biology. It points to a fungus called ergot, which can grow on damp rye, a staple grain used to make bread at the time. This fungus produces a chemical that is structurally similar to LSD. Ingesting it can cause a condition called ergotism, which has two forms. One causes gangrene, but the other, convulsive ergotism, causes severe muscle spasms, tremors, and hallucinations. Could the entire city have been poisoned by a batch of bad bread? It certainly fits the symptoms of uncontrolled movement and a delirious state of mind. However, critics of this theory point out that it is unlikely that so many people would react in the exact same way, by dancing. Ergot poisoning usually leads to more random, spastic movements, not a coordinated, albeit frantic, dance. Also, it is hard to imagine someone with severe ergot poisoning having the physical stamina to dance for days on end. The third theory takes us back to the mindset of the 16th century itself. To the people of Strasbourg, the world was a place filled with saints and demons, curses and miracles. Many at the time believed the dancers were possessed by a demon or had been cursed by a saint. Specifically Saint Vitus. In some local traditions, Saint Vitus was believed to have the power to inflict a dancing curse on those who angered him. The dancers were sometimes taken to a shrine dedicated to Saint Vitus in the hopes of being cured. This explanation suggests the event was a culturally bound phenomenon, a physical manifestation of a deep-seated religious belief and fear. For them, the idea of a dancing plague wasn't just possible, it was a very real spiritual threat. So, which one is it? Mass hysteria, fungal poisoning, or a religious curse? The truth is, we still don't have a definitive answer. Each theory explains some aspects of the event, but none of them perfectly fits all the facts. It is possible the real cause was a combination of all three. A population stressed to the breaking point, perhaps weakened by a low level of food poisoning, who interpreted their symptoms through the lens of their deepest spiritual fears. The dancing plague of 1518 eventually subsided. The authorities, realizing their more dancing cure was a failure, switched tactics. They banned all public music and dancing. The afflicted were gathered up and taken to shrines to pray for absolution. Slowly, over the course of a few weeks, the dancing faded away, leaving a traumatized city and a death toll of dozens, possibly hundreds. It remains one of history's most bizarre and unsettling medical mysteries. A time when a community was literally danced to death, and no one, not then and not now, can fully explain why. It is a chilling reminder of how little we sometimes understand about the strange and powerful connection between the mind, the body, and the world around us. Thanks so much for watching. If you found this historical mystery as fascinating as I did, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into the strangest corners of history. And let me know in the comments which theory you think is the most plausible. See you in the next video.